Hello and welcome into the third edition of the new and improved Liberty Ballers Hoops Hangout. My name is Jake Fischer alongside Jake Pavorsky and Roy Burton, writers for LibertyBallers.com. Finally get to show off my college dorm atmosphere going on. Jake's a hater. Roy likes the Iverson memorabilia. I got Moses Malone on the left, Thad Young on the right. Ready to go. How you guys
I'll
doing?
refrain from further comments about the Iverson poster.
The best part of that whole setup there is the white man can't jump poster over your left shoulder. I have to admit that's quality. That's quality.
White Man Can't Jump might be one of the most underrated sports movies of all time, but that's a conversation for another day. Basketball, and taping this on a Thursday evening at 8 o'clock, which young Jake Pavorsky is making me miss the Bad Boy Pistons 30 for 30 documentary for, but it's okay.
You poor thing.
Jake's got school tomorrow. You got to get this done early.
Hey, man, it's spring break. Leave me alone, all right?
Apologies.
So, being Thursday, we're a day removed from the Philadelphia 76ers 2013-2014 regular season. Feels like it ended a week ago, but it was just last night. What is your guys' immediate feelings with the conclusion of this year? We'll start with Jake.
The season ended back in October, but I don't know. It's nice to go into a season where you don't have any expectations, and the only thing you're expected to do is to lose. So it kind of allows you to step back and just enjoy it for what it was, and that was seeing the young guys grow a little bit, bringing in some guys who can possibly make a difference off the bench next year. And, it was fun. Watching Brandon Davies get stuffed around the rim every night was nice.
Yes.
The incompetency when it came to alley-oops was enjoyable. You run through 28 different guys this season on the active roster. So I got to say it was one of the more enjoyable seasons I've had, watching the Sixers.
I kind of have to agree with that. It's for a 19-win season. It was one of the more entertaining basketball seasons that I've watched. And we kind of knew it was going to be bad going in, but now that it's over, now that we can kind of reflect and say, you know what, all of that was worth it. It was worth going through all of that pain. I mean, we didn't think that, we didn't expect 26 straight losses. We didn't expect, basically half the things that happened this year. But after everything that's going through, now we can sit back now, halfway through April, 82 games, and now we can say, you know what, all of that was worth it. It was worth those bad games against, Charlotte and Milwaukee and the games where we had like 5 people in the comment thread because no one really cared about the team at the end of the season. It really was all worth it. We got the number 2 pick in the draft. Hopefully we have the Pelicans pick at number 10 or thereabouts. So, you know what, it was painful, but 6 months later, I can deal with that.
And I feel oddly refreshed, too. I don't feel worn down right now. I feel like I'm good for another 82, which is weird coming out of a season like this. So.
Well, maybe it's that fresh cut you got. I can tell you just got back from a nice little haircut.
Me? Nah.
All right. You sure about that?
I'm just keeping it clean. That's all. Just got to keep it looking good.
Roy, you did say it was worth it.
Keep it looking good for the ladies.
The 2 that watch this at most.
Roy, you did say.
What was that, Jake? I'm sorry.
You said the season was worth it, but it's only going to be worth it if the ping pong balls fall their way. We'll talk about that in a second. Before we get there, just want to say Jake touched on some Brandon Davies failed alley-oops. What are your guys' favorite memories of this season?
I'm going to say just the first game to begin with. MCW starting off the Heat game on Halloween or Halloween Eve with a steal and a dunk. And I mean that is just the perfect way to open your NBA career there. So that was a fun moment. The Hawes fadeaway one-legged 3 in the corner against Milwaukee, and that was also early in the season. Yeah, it was right. The pistols, the 3 pistols are a key component to that shot. That was fun. I don't know. There are a lot of fun moments this year. I don't know if I could sum all them up. Most of them are more fails and flops than anything else. Andrea Bargnani trying to dunk over Thad and just completely killing 3 other people was the highlight of the season. I don't know. There's a lot to count. I think at one point we're gonna turn that into a series of posts to put on the site before the draft.
Yeah, there are a couple of moments that kind of stand out. You obviously picked out a couple. Another one, the Evan Turner winner against the Celtics, where he kind of ran down, like a boss after the shot, thinking he's
Yes.
Iguodala Jr. on that shot. Another one, I forget who the opponent was, but the Tony Roten dunk in traffic that he pounded his chest after. I forget who they played.
It might have been Charlotte. Was that over MKG?
I think it was Charlotte, but I don't remember. I think it was Charlotte, but that was a pretty good play. But I think the game that kind of stood out to me, other than the opener, was that win against the Pistons to not set the record for the 27 straight wins. I mean, we're all Team Tank here, but I just really, at some point, I just really wanted these guys to not set that record, and that was just kind of the perfect storm of events. You have a bad, quitty Pistons team coming into town, and the Sixers just rolled them that night, and they avoided setting the record, and for me, like I can accept them, I could deal with them not catching the Bucks in the tanking race just for that one night, because what, on some level I kind of feel bad for guys like Thaddeus Young and Michael Carter Williams, going night after night, loss after loss. So to me, that was one of the moments that kind of stood out.
I really, really enjoyed watching that Pistons win, but at the same time, I wanted 36 straight so badly, because if this team tanked the best tank of all time and had the worst winning streak ever and was the biggest disgrace of all time, that would have just been another point to say just how great a job Sam Hinkie did at setting himself up for failure.
Well, that all depends on where the ping pong balls fall, though.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to be the team with the 36 straight losses, and then all of a sudden you're picking third or fourth, and you're like, what the hell just happened?
True.
That's true.
I don't know. Sharing history is nice. Setting history in that regard, I'm cool with the way it fell.
Yeah, me too. But my favorite part of this season, the time I spent an hour by myself cutting the video for that Evan Turner tribute thing, and reliving that dunk that he had for the team was probably my favorite 5-minute stretch of the season by far. Just the dunk, and then when he goes up to Nick Young afterwards to dap him, and Nick Young just shakes his head and walks away. Oh my goodness!
Man, you didn't need to apologize. Pound your chest, young man. Like, show off a little bit. You guys are winning like 4 more games the rest of the year. Who cares if you just LA for once? Holy crap, Evan! Grow some balls.
I thought that was so fun. Oh my gosh! But
speaking of that video, I don't mean to cut you off, but speaking of that video, you know what? I think we just forgot the best part of the season, which happened at the very beginning of the season on Media Day when Evan Turner grabbed the hot microphone and had a little shout out to the Philadelphia sports fans.
My favorite part of that video is my buddy Max Rappaport at the end just shrugging it off like a champ and going, and we're here with Evan Turner, and it just cuts. Oh my, it's so perfect. But
my bad, y'all.
Oh, we're live?
Yeah.
Going back to
classic Evan.
What actually happened on the court during the 48 minutes of action. From what you guys saw this year, excluding MCW and Nerlens, let's say you can pick 5 guys that were on this roster ending last night that you can automatically guarantee you save them to be on the Summer League team and invited to training camp. Who are those 5 guys? I'm going to start with Roy because Jake's been getting the first say this whole time.
You know what? This is actually easier than I thought it was going to be. First of all, I had to look at the roster because I forgot who was still here because so many guys have been here. But if I had to pick 5 other than the 2 obvious, I'd go Tony Roten. I think I'd like to see him in a Summer League setting get a lot of time, get significant time as a lead guard running a team. So I'd go Tony Roten. I'd go Henry Sims. I kind of like what I've seen out of him over the past couple of months here. Hollis Thompson, again, led all rookies in 3-point shooting percentage this year. So Hollis Thompson again. And I think he's probably going to be the Sixers' backup 2 guard next year. Depending on how things fall out in the draft and all. Jarvis Varnado, I'd probably pick as 4. And just for the sheer entertainment factor alone, I have to go Brandon Davies because Summer League basketball is terrible in and of itself. And then when you add the hilarity of Brandon Davies' missed alley-oops and missed layups, that could make a boring game in Orlando and or Las Vegas very entertaining.
I will say that Brandon Davies, and we've given him a lot of flack this year, is I really think pro somewhere in the world. I don't know if it's the NBA, It's probably not the NBA. In Europe, he has potential to be a successful player. He just never got a chance to show the minimal skill he has in this up and down system. He's a okay low post scorer. He showed some of that towards the end here. He's gonna have a nice long career in Turkey somewhere. He's gonna make a lot of money. So make fun of him all he wants, but he's gonna have a good life.
He seems like a lovely young man, but at some point it just went from funny to sad with him. Just watching him do things, and to the point where it was almost klutzy, I felt bad for him. But getting back to the five guys, Roden I'm cool with, although I think eventually, maybe even next year, they're going to probably look for another backup guard that can actually shoot a little bit. So Roden, we have Sims, who I like, who's been perfect for this team as like a blue-collar type guy. Brown just absolutely loves him, wants to have him over for dinner. He talked about all this crazy stuff. Thompson I like as a swing man off the bench. I don't know if he'll play a lot next year. I'd be cool if he did. Nice three-point shot. Did a good job defensively a little bit this year. I'm cool with keeping James Anderson, too. I didn't shoot the three ball as much as I would have liked, and what he didn't have, Thompson made up. So I'm cool with him. And, I mean, I guess Elliot Williams. I mean, he didn't do too much for me. I know a couple other guys at the site were big fans of him.
People, though.
Say it again?
You only have 5. You picked 6.
No, you know, fine.
You know what? Then just cut Elliot the hell out. But, for a team with a bunch of scrubs for the most part, I'm picking way too many guys. But, you know,
because I had the same 5 as you.
The thing with the summer league, though, is that you have, you know, you got your MCW and Noel, who are obviously going out to Vegas, Orlando, both, wherever they send them. You're going to have your two rookies.
Not obviously, but I expect them to, yeah.
Yeah. So you have the 2 rookies this year. You have the 2 rookies next year. That's kind of a loaded roster as it is. So I don't know if Roten's the kind of guy you send out there. I'm looking for, I don't know, some undrafted guys, some fun names to send out there. Possibly.
Vander Blue.
Well,
bring Vander back. One more run.
Some of the rosters are around like 15, 17 guys big. Plus, you don't usually have the team's veterans. So our veterans that won't be there are Jason Richardson, and if Byron Mullins sticks around. So other than that, everyone else is pretty much eligible to go there. I have the same 5 as you, Jake, and going into this year, I thought James Anderson was going to be the guy that was like the clear-cut number 3 guy behind Carter Williams and Noel. So hopefully, or the clear-cut number 3 guy to keep moving forward. Hopefully, he can step up his game as well over the stretch. But talked some draft. The big news today was that Jabari Parker finally decided to come out and declare the draft. I got a text from Jake that was not in English about it. He was very excited.
It was multiple consonants and vowels not forming any words whatsoever. It was just noises. So, it sounded like a gag reflex if you tried to make noise out of it. But
so Jake was the biggest Jabari Parker fan in the world come like December 3rd, and now he's off the bandwagon. But we'll start with you, Jake. Why is it such a big deal that Jabari Parker's coming out?
I think I mean, obviously the goal here for the team is Wiggins, but I think Wiggins and Parker are 1 and 1A. So let's just say, I don't know, you get screwed by the lottery or whatever, and it doesn't work out for the Sixers. Having a safety blanket in Jabari Parker is pretty damn nice to have.
Yeah.
Not from going from him to instead of if he didn't enter, maybe a guy like Julius Randle, who I don't necessarily love the fit with the Sixers, or Dante Exum, who could probably play the 2 guard but wants to be a point guard. I mean, at that point, you might have to trade out of that spot. That would be something you would possibly consider. So, I mean, we know what he is. He's a prolific scorer. He's a guy who's working on his defense. Not as athletic as Wiggins, but he's more of a strength and power kind of guy. But he's going to have a long and prosperous career in the NBA as a really great scorer. So, I mean, having him declare just completely makes this draft class the worthwhile.
Yeah, everyone keeps saying. Now, the last couple weeks that I've been listening to and reading some draft stuff, everyone keeps saying he's a 4. Jabari Parker's a 4. And while I think he's going to be a great asset to play as a small ball power forward alongside a Nerlens Noel type guy, I think he still has value playing on the wing as well. I mean, if you go back and watch on YouTube, you can watch his full game against Kansas. How it's like the first month where he shot I think he shot 80% from three. Like, he was hard. He was taking the ball from the wing with one dribble moves and getting to the rim. He's got the versatile attack ability to really play either position. And I think that's a kind of player offensively who Sam Hinkie can really take advantage of building around as well. But again, obviously Wiggins is the number one choice. Roy, what are your thoughts on Jabari coming out?
Yeah, I just have to echo Jake Pavorsky's sentiments on this one. You know, it's really he's a great consolation prize in air quotes if you don't get the number one pick. But B, you know, he's the guy that, you know, pushes the rest of the talent down to you if you don't get that number one or number two pick. So, you know, if you don't wind up with a Wiggins or now a Parker, you know, now you'll get, you know, as Jake said, an Exum, Embiid, a Randall, a guy like that. Again, some of those guys may not be ideal fits, but if you're at 3 or at 4 and those guys are on the board, you take them and then you figure out what goes on, you know, what goes on after that. If Wiggins is the only guy, and again, I guess we're assuming that Randall's coming out, which wouldn't make all the sense in the world, but if Parker isn't there, then you know, and Wiggins is going number 1, and you're sitting there at 3. Then you kind of have to figure out, all right, you know, you're not going to get your number 2 choice, who's a step, you know, at least a step below Andrew Wiggins, and you're probably left scrambling at that point, figuring out what to do. But again, it's a great consolation prize if you don't get one of the top 2 picks, and if not, then again, it pushes the rest of the talent down to you if you kind of fall back in the draft a little bit.
Yeah, I will say though the next domino that has to fall though is Joel Embiid being healthy. I mean, if he's not healthy, then again, even with Jabari coming out, there's a huge drop off for a Sixers perspective. There's a huge drop off in guys. So while it is big that Jabari's come out, next month with Joel, I'm sure he's doing whatever he can to get in his best shape. I still believe that come combine time, he's going to show he's a physical freak, and he's gonna become the number one or the unanimous number 1 best player for most teams other than the Sixers. I really do think Embiid's going to be fine, but we have to see him do that. And before we can even get there, the NBA draft lottery is on May 20th. Roy talked about the Sixers having the number 2 odds behind the Milwaukee Bucks. How nervous are you guys going to be that night?
I'm not that nervous. Again, it's one of those things, you know. The worst case scenario is that you wind up at 5 and you don't get the Pelicans pick, but that's really unlikely because again, you'd have to have 3 teams jump you for 1 to get to 5, and the Pelicans basically have a 5% chance of landing one of the top 3 picks. So the worst case scenario, which is really unlikely, you wind up at 5 and you settle for a guy like Randall or settle for a guy like Exum. That's not a terrible situation. Now, was it worth the 82 games of pain that we had to endure just now? Maybe, but again, you know, it's like, you know, Sam Hinkie said, it's a blackjack. You play the odds, you play the smart way. If things fall your way, great. If they don't fall your way, you deal with it and you kind of move on. So I'm not entirely worried. The worst case scenario is better than, you know, a lot of good case scenarios in most draft years. So I'm okay with that. And besides, if you wind up at 5 and the Pelicans jump you, you know, you'll have a chance at the Pelicans pick next year. And next year's draft is, again, not as loaded as this year's draft, but it's not terrible. So I mean, you're probably going to wind up getting, you know, an impact player or 2 in next year's draft as well if things don't turn out your way this year. So I'm not entirely worried about what might happen on the 20th.
Yeah, Jake, what are your thoughts?
I'm not worried about New Orleans. I don't think there's a large chance they're going to make the jump into the top 3. And the thing is, I think if you're going to get the pick, it's got to be this year. I mean, other than mathematically that they're going to have it, the team needs to make the jump next year. And I imagine if they're healthy, they're going to. So that's a team that's probably competing for a playoff spot. But when it comes to where the Sixers are sitting, I don't know. I think it's okay to be kind of scared there because past history since 2007, Kyle Neubeck was nice enough to put this together. Boston with the 2nd lottery odds ended up 5th. Seattle in 2008, 4th. Washington 5th. Minnesota 4th. Cleveland 4th. Washington 3rd. And last year, Charlotte ended up 4th. So the 2nd hasn't necessarily historically been a nice place to be sitting heading into, relying on the ping pong balls. So there's a chance that they could fall out of the top 3, and that's the thought of losing out on Wiggins and Parker is scary. I know, you got Randall in there. It's a nice draft. The top 5 is really just it's nice in general. But you think about this, you have dreams about Wiggins, and I made that sound much weirder than it is. When you think about Wiggins and Parker possibly playing, in a Sixers uniform, and you build yourself up over 5-6 months about these guys possibly coming to Philadelphia and helping to change a franchise. I think it's okay to be, get some butterflies in there as you're heading into May 20th. So I don't know. Maybe I'm making more of a big deal out of it than it is, but I think if you're scared or you're nervous about it, that's not a bad thing to be.
Yeah, I will say my biggest fear isn't about the positioning. My fear is if they get number 4, number 5, and they take a guy like Randall, or maybe they reach for Noah Vonleh or something like that, and the fan base immediately takes that as this guy is the face of our franchise because we've been expecting to take a guy like Wiggins or Parker to be that number 1 scoring option and to be the next the Kevin Durant, the LeBron, the Kyrie Irving, the Paul George to this team. And that guy just isn't that guy. And obviously the organization will know that, but I'm just afraid that fans will overreact and expect that player to then become the franchise perennial all-star guy that we were hoping for with this draft. That's my only fear. And that was something I was thinking about when I read Michael Levin and Andrew Untenberger's really long but really good piece today with the big board talking about, Mike was saying how he thought Randall was a really good guy to put up 20 and 10 on a losing team. And if they get Randall, obviously he's a really talented player, but he's not going to be an instant all-star, instant 20 and 10 guy. Maybe he could be. I just fear that fans would immediately start buying Julius Randle jerseys and preaching him to be the next thing that he probably isn't. That's my only worry.
It's absolutely going to happen. If it comes to that where they fall out of the top 3 and they end up getting a guy like Randall, that's absolutely going to be the situation. It's because you did all this and you ended up with this guy. So this guy needs to become what you were expecting of Parker or Wiggins. That's exactly what's going to happen. It's how Philadelphia is built, which is, I don't know, hopefully they end up being that kind of guy, and maybe they can be, but it's a scary situation to put yourself in, and the expectations become ginormous for a guy like that.
Yeah. So with that, Roy, all you, man.
No, I'm just saying that. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen, and you just have to hope that that guy, like Jake said, you have to hope that the guy can basically ignore that and block that out, and just kind of play his game. Because again, whoever they pick, no matter what, he's going to be the face of the franchise over the next 5 or 10 years or whatever have you. And again, we lost 63 games and lost 26 in a row, and wound up with player X. Player X has to go out and prove himself 82 games next year. And it's whether it's Wiggins, Randall, Parker, whoever, they just have to be able to kind of shrug off any negative criticism that comes from the fans and go out and just play their game. Because again, we've seen criticism from Philadelphia fans crush a lot of good players in the city. So again, you just have to hope that those guys, whoever you pick, has that mental constitution, if you will, to kind of deal with that, which I think you referred to in your little homework assignment that you gave us about Jabari Parker having the mental makeup to be a really good number 2 pick. Hopefully he does and can deal with the NBA kind of level of pressure. But hopefully whoever the Sixers pick at wherever they pick has that same kind of mental makeup.
Yeah. So we're running a little long here, but I just want to get this last question in. Let's say the Sixers get the 2nd pick and the 10th pick, where they're slotted at right now. In like a few sentences, give me your best case scenario for who to take at number 2 and at number 10, and why. We'll start with Roy.
2 and 10, I guess. Geez, I was guessing 1 and 10.
Go with 1 and 10. Go with 1.
All right. If 1 and 10, I think best case scenario, I think you wind up with Wiggins, and you probably wind up with McDermott at 10. And you have a shooter. You figure out the Thad's still here. You figure out the Thaddeus Young McDermott fit, but then you have Wiggins on the wing as well. At the worst case scenario, again, if you wind up at 5, which again is unlikely, you get a guy like Exum, which again isn't the end of the world probably. So best case Wiggins, McDermott. Worst case probably Exum.
All right, best case Jake.
I was actually thinking of along the lines of Wiggins and McDermott because I think there's a lot of fun things you can do with McDermott there. Put him as a 3, maybe as a small ball 4. He's kind of a guy with a good post-up game. I know this is a little off topic here, but I think you have to go into the future expecting Thad not to be on this team and to mold this team, expecting him not to be the starting guy next year. So you go out there and you look for someone else possibly to fill that role, and this would be the greatest scenario for have him to fall to 10. But I think Noah Vonleh would be just perfect here. And at Indiana, they forced him to play center a lot, which was a shame because he didn't get to really show off his perimeter range a lot. But in the small sample size he had shooting outside, he was pretty deadly. So he's not the quickest guy out there. He's not really the guy who's probably going to take you off the dribble. But him and Noel would make a decent pairing there at 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So that, to me, if you can get Wiggins and Vonleh, that's your best scenario right there.
Yeah, I think Vonleh his ceiling is somewhere in between Thad Young and Chris Bosh, which is at number 10. I wouldn't be surprised to see them then take a move by maybe packaging Thad and maybe Tony Roten in 2 seconds to move up to number 7 or something to get Vonleh because I really do think he's a taller, better version of Thad. And
he's a much better rebounder too. He's a guy who builds his game defensively. So it's the offensive game that needs a little work. And with that, it was him that he was more of an offensive guy and not really assertive in the paint as much.
Yeah. So I totally agree. He's your best option with your second pick. But let's say they keep that and for the time being and they just go number 1 and 10. I think Gary Harris is the better option than McDermott strictly defensive-wise, and I know McDermott's will be really fun to have offensively, but Sam Hinkie's a defensive-minded guy, and even though they didn't do anything like that this year, and organizationally they didn't care about defense at all, I think for the future that's clearly what they're going to be focused on. Look at all the guys that Hinkie's taken chances on. They're all long, athletic guys who have at least the potential to be defensive stalwarts. And Gary Harris at 6'5" is not undersized for a shooting guard. Yeah, maybe playing next to MCW, you'd maybe want like a 6'8" shooting guard like a Rodney Hood or McDermott. He's got a long wingspan. I forget how long it is. I think it's like 6'8", 6'9". He's D'd up guys at both of his years at Michigan State. He's a knockdown shooter. He's going to be a 3-and-D shooting guard, solid starter, maybe like a Wes Matthews for 10 years in the league. And that's a really solid get at number 10 because even though you want number 10 to turn into a Paul George or something like that, at the same time, usually when you redraft NBA drafts, the actual draft, it's like 5 or 6 player draft, as in like number 1, number 2 options. If you can get a solid number 3 like a Gary Harris at number 10, with your number 1 pick being your franchise go-to guy in Wiggins, I think that's a great get.
Mm-hmm.
I know Jake's not a big fan of Gary Harris. If you want to have a quick response.
Rodney Hood. Come on, Jake.
Yeah, no, Rodney's been my guy for a while, and I kind of backed off a little bit because I know where the criticism is coming from there, sort of defensively. But I don't know. I think he gave Harris a little more credit for his wingspan. I think he's 6'4" with like a 6'5" or 6'6" wingspan, so he's not necessarily as long. And I don't know, people made him out to be like a great slasher or something like that. He's really improved, and I guess I sort of see that. But I don't think he's that good. He's going to be that good at the next level when it comes to getting to the rim. And he's just, I don't know. I guess strength is something you could work on at the next level. And he's 19, 20, so that's something that can come around. But I don't know. You see him at the rim and he sort of wilts almost. And you watch him and he's shooting the ball this year, and his numbers are all down across the board. And I think you look at Hood, and Hood fits the mold of, as you were saying, a guy who's 6'8", 6'9", who can play the 2, can also play the 3, and a guy who's just an absolute, knockdown shooter, a lefty, who he can take you to the hole, but he's another guy, he needs to bulk up and he needs to assert himself defensively. So as a team that's kind of trying to become defensive-minded, although granted they didn't show it this year, I mean, I guess Harris would be the guy, but I think Hood is a better fit going forward, and I think I'd be a little disappointed if they ended up taking Harris. No offense to Gary if he's watching this.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me tonight. It's April 17th. We'll probably won't touch base again for all our loyal viewers until after the lottery, because there really isn't anything that pressing to talk about. Because everything we talked about tonight, again, has that caveat, well, we don't know where they're going to be picking. So we'll talk to you guys around then. For Jake and Roy, it's been fun. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys next time.
See you guys later.